This question is very sensitive and personal, and I hope I answer it not just correctly, but with sufficient sensitivity. What is the extent to the leniencies for a Ba'alei Teshuva? I know they're never going to be like an FFB, but how much should I try? Can I, quote, make up my own minhagim since my family doesn't have any? I'm going to try and address this question. And like I said, I hope I'm being sensitive. And if I'm being offensive, I really apologize because I don't mean to be. I think there's two classes in Ba'alei Teshuva. The Ba'alei Teshuvas who had a chance to go to yeshiva and the Ba'alei Teshuvas who did not have a chance to go to yeshiva. And I think the difference is night and day. Even if a Ba'alei Teshuva spent as little as 3 months in a yeshiva, both for boys and for girls, they have a whole different sense of what Yiddishkeit is than people who haven't had that opportunity. What I mean is, what you learn by being in yeshiva is that Yiddishkeit is not just a bunch of things that we do. It's a way of life. It's totally consuming. And the yeshiva experience envelops the person and gives them that experience. So I'm going to make an assumption that the one asking this question did not have an opportunity to learn in a yeshiva, because I think a Ba'alei Teshuva who has is really no different than an FFB. He may have a problem pronouncing Yiddish and Hebrew words. For example, he may lack certain knowledge. But I must tell you that BTs have distinct advantages over FFBs. I mean, I know adult men who learned Hebrew when they were 21 years old and got smicha by the time they were 24 or 25. And are as learned as boys who spent their entire life learning in yeshiva. It's upsetting and disturbing and wrong, but a fact. So a Ba'alei Teshuva who's had a yeshiva experience, certainly an extensive yeshiva experience, but even if one has had a limited yeshiva experience, so they don't have a lot of knowledge, but they have a sense of Yiddishkeit that comes from having been in a yeshiva. I don't think that, this is my opinion, that this question applies to them. In other words, a Ba'alei Teshuva is learned in a yeshiva in terms of how he or she lives his life or her life, really is empowered to be as principled and as uncompromising as anybody who's been from his whole life. There are aspects of it that are hard. The hardest part of being a Ba'alei Teshuva, I think, without question, the hardest part of being a Ba'alei Teshuva is not a religious issue. It's not having family. It's not having support. It's not having a mother and a father that understand your way of life in many cases. And this is true no matter how many years you spend in yeshiva. It's one of the great pains of first-generation Ba'alei Teshuva. And when their children grow up and they watch their children raise their children, the delight that Ba'alei Teshuva parents get when they see their children having siblings and their children's children having cousins, and the contrast to their own personal experience where they lack that, is probably one of the greatest joys that a Ba'alei Teshuva can experience after having been from for many, many years. So this is the first part of my answer to your question. In short, a Ba'alei Teshuva who's been to a yeshiva, even for a short time, really is empowered to embrace Yiddishkeit without compromise. What I'm really trying to say is that even if you're already older, and even if you're married, if you could take off a short period of time, a month, 6 weeks, 3 months, and go learn in a yeshiva, it'll change your life. Even if you go as a couple, the yeshiva experience has no equal in terms of making a person appreciate the totality of Judaism, how it embraces you, how you become one with it. And this is the first part of my answer, and I'm going to stop now and I'm going to make a separate recording to answer the question that I was asked directly.